All right. So I noticed a couple people were at the same presentation for portfolios yesterday. So some of this will be rehashed because we are going to talk about them generically before we get a little bit deeper. So for those who weren't there yesterday, why portfolios? We want to look at the process. We want to have students thinking about learning as a process rather than just that final product. So it's really shifting their learning and not just being focused on the end result and the mark, but as students who are in experiential programs like TAP, we want them to think about the skills that they're acquiring, how they're problem solving, how they're tackling things. We want to have them have some ownership over their learning. And I know Alan will get into it later. The Yarmouth program, they really started to do that ownership of the learning, and we want to make sure that the students can document it and we can give feedback, that we can encourage that engagement in the whole process of the learning. Help them reflect and think about it, see how they can make connections to what they're doing and the skills that they're developing that are going to benefit them later on. As teachers engage in it, if you're working on developing your own portfolios to model for your students, research indicates you have a better understanding about how to implement it in your classroom as well. And the students are more able to discuss kind of the skills they have, their abilities. They usually have a better understanding of who they are, which is really what we want to see from our students moving through school. So we want to use it for a variety of things, documenting the process, uploading images, documenting what they're doing. If students are learning a new technology, being able to document how they understood it, how they worked through problems, how they overcame barriers, how they learned to implement it, being able to document what they were actually able to do. So when we talk about later in this program, when they're going for summer work experiences, when they're interviewing with industry partners, all this stuff, they're going to actually have evidence that they did it. So not just simply a resume that has it, but backup and evidence that they were able to navigate this problem. They were able to design this challenge, and here's some physical evidence of it. I can't just tell you about it, but I can show you. For teachers to be able to monitor these portfolios across courses when you're working on an IBL that touches in a whole bunch of different courses, which is what we want with TAP, because they are cohorted in those 7 other 8 grade 10 classes. We want to see them working and meeting outcomes from multiple courses through the same inquiry. And it also allows them, if they're working in groups, because they're individual portfolios, you're able to see what that student has been doing. You're able to give them feedback on what they have been doing. It's not a collective process that comes in, which is what we shouldn't be marking a group project without that. We're able to see what they have done. They're able to reflect on their own learning and have greater ownership of it. So it's also really important when we talk dual credits later on with NSCC, they're going to want to see evidence that they've achieved the requirements for it. So we have discussed this with them, and this is something that is going to work for them. So to be able to have all the teachers involved with TAP be able to document, have students document in their courses what they have done, the skills they've acquired, the experience that they've had, will allow us to have students earn dual credits while in high school, and it'll make that transition to post-secondary even smoother for those students. This link here, there are some exemplar portfolios you can take a look at and peruse that have been created by myBlueprint, and they're pretty good. We won't take a look at them today, but that link will be available for you to peruse. So, do we have any questions before we move on to taking a look at the actual program? No? All right. Just pop over for a second. Good. All right. So as I mentioned yesterday, for those of you who were there and those who weren't, as a teacher, you get a teacher account. We're able to add as many classes as you want. You can split up classes. If you want, students don't, they know they're in this teacher's class name, whatever. But if you want to have multiple classes, you have students who you want to partner together for a group, or students who, if you're sharing activities in here that you're giving alternate assignments to, you can create them there, provide them with with activities that meet their needs. And there's no limit to how many classes you have. All of your students have accounts pre-created through PowerSchool and their GNSPES. They have to validate their account their first time, which if they go to the GNSPES landing page, they put their GNSPES in, they can click on the myBlueprint link, put their GNSPES information in, and they'll validate with a student ID and birth date, prove it's them, and they can single sign on from that point forward. Which means whenever they go to the GNSPES page and they're logged in, they can click on that link and it will take them directly in. So that, because we have that, it saved a huge headache in spending a lot of time getting students set up. It also means it's one username and password for them. So in our student account, if you look at a class, I can see all the students who are in my class. If I click on a name, I can see when they last logged in, what they've kind of done. I can also check out their feed, and it'll indicate everything that they've been doing, and I can give some feedback along the way. I can type in some stuff. I can leave some comments for them, give them that feedback. If they've added an item to the portfolio, they've added a reflection, they've done anything else. I can also record audio. If I'm tired of typing all day long, I can just record little audio clips and they'll be able to listen to them there. I can add a photo for them. If there's an article, a video I want them to watch, anything else that I think would help supplement. If you want to record yourself in video, giving them feedback, you can as well. But this is a pretty quick and easy way to go down, monitor what the students have been doing, and give kind of that short feedback, meaningful feedback to help guide what they're doing. You can create activities in here as well. If you want them to add certain things to portfolios, you can add that there. As well in our classes, if you ever want to share it, because you're team teaching, you can always share your class as well. It's not a big issue for teachers to create their own class. If a student's in multiple classes, you all see the same things that are happening in their account. So you can create your own class, or you can share if you have the exact same class as well and they're working on things across, if that's just easier, especially with a teacher who's a little resistant. You want to help encourage them so they don't even have to set up a class. But creating a class, quick and easy, you name it. And then you add students. Any of the students that are on your list, you can go down, you can filter by grade level and just click on their names and add them. So pretty painless to set up and add a class. Every one of you also has a student view, which allows you to play around with and see what exactly the student's account will look like. You can play around and get a bit more familiar with it. I'm on the landing page, the dashboard there, and we actually have, as you can see, I have a whole bunch of items here in the portfolio. I can add an unlimited number of portfolios. If for some reason for multiple purposes, one of the portfolios, but they need to pull a couple things out and they don't want to be adding and deleting, they can always duplicate a portfolio and be able to have multiple portfolios ready for them at that point in time. So, they can put a ton of stuff in here. It's really clear. I'm going to show you actually. So Students working on a design challenge, let's just say. They can upload images, articles that help give them their criteria for their solution, pictures that talk about that process, video that they watch that help give them there, and they can add reflections to each of the pieces. It's really important when using a portfolio that reflections are added to the items to explain why this was selected. What we don't want it to be is just a collection of things. The real power, and especially in e-portfolio, is there can be multimedia resources. You can upload video, audio, images that are really difficult in that old paper pen printout binder portfolio. So lots can be added for the student. They can add a ton of things. They can tag stuff so it's easier to navigate, but they should be adding reflections to explain why this was selected, how this informed that process, why they decided to go one way versus another. And if they're working on a group project, you can give them prompts for journals, and they can explain why, how they overcame a barrier that they had. They're struggling to connect with the community group they're trying to work with. They've called them 4 times. They haven't been able to get a call back. They realize that it only operates from 4 to 6. So they're going to have to do it after school. But that allows students to talk through and do stuff rather than just thinking, well, we didn't get the answer we want, we failed. We really want to encourage them to realize learning is a process in this. So again, they should have a really good final kind of capstone portfolio that they're continually adding stuff and taking things out to, but you should also be using it throughout other courses, other inquiry-based learning opportunities to really engage students with the resource itself. And depending on what you're teaching, our students will be taking the career development. It's really important for them to make sure that when they're looking at the world of IT, they understand what they're getting themselves into. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's a high school planner where they can start to track their courses, post-secondary where they can look at and compare those, work where they can develop resumes, research occupations. We won't get into the real every little nitty-gritty detail because we're a little short on time today with it. But one of the things, if you're starting with your students and want to get to know them next year, I would encourage would be the Who Am I? Surveys where students look at their learning styles, personalities, interests, knowledge, and motivations. They get a report that's there. This is a really good start of the year activity where they can put these in, reflect on what they are, add some other information about who they are, and do a Who Am I portfolio to get familiar with the tool, to start to think about who they are as a learner, to give you some more information about that, to start having discussions and building that relationship is a really good use of the product at that point in time. So good question, Kim. You can do it through the teacher account. So we'll go back to. So from my teacher account, that student view opens up where it just was. So my student account there. It allows me to kind of do everything that they would do, see everything that they would see. myBlueprint, another easy way to get them involved. This was my first year doing it with students 4 years ago. We're piloting it in the province. There's a task button here. Students get points for doing tasks. myBlueprint assigns new ones each year. They get to earn points, and there's actually prizes available for them. So there's none because it's the middle of the summer and there's no students in, but they're able to earn prizes. They can enter draws for gift cards and things like that. And that really got students to dig in and get familiar with the program right off the bat. The other piece I'll show you too is there is a goal setting tool. So if you have students who are working on a long-term project, to be able to set action steps for them, to be able to go through, add those to a portfolio as the start of a project, and be able to give them feedback on things. So you can continually encourage them to add new tasks as they may need. But it's a really easy tool for doing goal setting in any of the courses which the career development would be occurring in for sure. All right. Any other questions? No. Alan, do you want to take over for a bit?
Sure, I can give some context. However, my blueprint is reverted back to an empty class because of the next school year. So I don't know how much I can show them, but I can definitely give them some context about what we did.
Perfect.
Am I allowed to share my screen on this?
Hopefully.
All right, let me see if this works. Window. Okay, this one, I guess. All right, so hopefully you guys can see my screen. I'm going to load it up here. And to give you a bit of what we were doing, the Technology Advantage program is basically a pilot program in Nova Scotia. It is for students who are interested in going into some sort of IT field. So like web programming, computer programming, cybersecurity, network administration, database administration, that type of thing. So we interviewed students last May and brought them in. So they did grade 9 in the TAP cohort. So it was in the TCRCE and in Halifax. So there were grade 9 students participating out of those two regions. And now they've since moved into TAP 10. And the program is a 6-year-long program. It does the 4 years from grade 9 to grade 12 in the high school setting and junior high setting. And then we move to 2 years at NSCC. And by the end of it, students graduate with a technology associate degree from NSCC. And they also get some other perks, like working with industry partners such as IBM, and mentorship programs with them. And they actually get an interview with IBM at the end of it, at the end of the successful completion of the TAP program. In our use of myBlueprint, the first time that we used it and sort of a stepping stone into it was when the department asked us to use it for the October conference. So in October of 2019, students were brought to Halifax for a 2-day conference there. And in that conference, we were asking students to use myBlueprint to reflect and to ask questions about what the conference meant to be, like what they got out of the conference. And we really front loaded that. I spoke with Jamie a couple of times, and together with Kaylin and Stacy, who are actually teaching the TAP program because I just oversee it, those two teachers did a lot of front loading with a lot of the activities that Jamie showed you. So we did a lot of that career development stuff. We did a lot of that goal setting stuff with our TAP 9 students to make sure that they got the most out of myBlueprint. And then of course we went away to our October conference, and from there they reflected back into a myBlueprint piece on that October conference. From there, what we used myBlueprint was basically a reflection of all of our major projects that we did in the TAP classroom. The TAP classroom is set up in such a way that it's project-based learning. So we have a couple of things that we do in regards to that. So one of the things that Kaylin Langell did was a how safe is our water exercise with students. And we're not talking about just drinking water, but how safe is our water in general, from drinking water to being out on the ocean every day, getting our livelihood from that, because Yarmouth is a fishing community, and we lose a fishing vessel once or twice a year for lobster fishing. So we were really looking at how safe is our water as a whole. So from that activity, we came up with a couple of major things that we wanted to do in terms of that. One of them being a safety app, one of them being a water bottle filling station within the town of Yarmouth. So that was all captured in myBlueprint. All of those reflections were there. So that sort of took place after the October conference, where we were generating these ideas for this project-based learning, and the tapstone project that sort of guided us. myBlueprint sort of helped us with that. From there, we went away on a TAP tour in March, and we met with some industry partners. We went to some businesses, and we talked with real people who are in the IT industry, real web developers, application developers, programmers, coders, cybersecurity experts. And we met with them and talked with them. And it was interesting when students started asking them questions from their different activities, because we told them exactly where we were going, and students would generate sort of questions. So when they were in those interviews with those real employees, they were saying, you know, there was 2 people in an interview and there was only 1 job, but what got me the job was my portfolio that I could fall back on, because in that interview I could tell my employer, yeah, these 2 people have all the qualifications, but what got them the job was that they could pull those ideas out of their portfolio and say, this is a project that I've worked on, this is a project that I've worked on, and this is a project that I've worked on, and give real concrete examples of how they applied their knowledge to different projects. So in hearing that in March, our students really sort of, that sort of solidified it with our students, that, okay, this portfolio piece that we're doing with myBlueprint is important, because it's a record of my learning over time, and how I've grown and how I've applied the things that I've learned in school. So of course, then for the rest of the year, we were planning on flushing out our safety app, and getting that up off the ground. We had Red Space that sort of wanted to help us, and IBM that sort of wanted to help us build this app. But of course, then things changed with COVID, and we were out of the classroom. So that all had to be put on hold to an extent. But I think students at that March trip really saw the benefits of building their portfolio and capturing their work in myBlueprint. We also built computers and in the classroom. So we had some industry experts actually come in February to help us with building computers. And we had activities in there that students at each stage would sort of reflect at the end of the day on, okay, I was able to do this, 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 and this. I was able to install the RAM. I was able to install the CPU. We mounted the video cards. We mounted the hard drives. It turned on. It works. Or if it didn't turn on, they captured the troubleshooting aspect of it. So myBlueprint was a really good way of capturing those bigger project-based learning elements within the classroom. And of course, we spent all of September going over a lot of those initial activities, and it might be 1 a week or 2 a week. So we didn't try to overwhelm them with myBlueprint, but definitely by March, they saw the benefits of it, hearing from real employees and real businesses that, hey, portfolios are extremely important. And even talking with our partners at NSCC really pushes the portfolio piece with student work, because they know that that is what employers are looking for. When you have a class of 25 people all graduating from the same IT field, what sets you apart from everybody else is the actual work that you've done and how you've applied those skills to different projects within your learning. That's what those people are looking for. So we've heard from the industry people, we've heard from real employees that this is what they're looking for. So that's why we pushed it so hard with our students and saying, like, look, there's a lot of benefit for you later on down the road for doing this work. So this was just our TAP classroom that we have here. And as you can see, it's shared with 3 different teachers. And if we look at the activities, only some of our activities are here. So Miss Purdy was sort of in charge, and Miss Langell were in charge of creating these different activities, and only some of them show up on my feed. But what I loved about it is that, me being the project lead, I could actually go into my feed and read students' work. So if I select this school year, of course, it shows nothing, but I was actually able to go in and see the different pieces. So I was teaching a lot of the building computer part, and we did some soldering. So when students were making comments about those things and posting information about what they learned that day, I was able to go in and actually give them, you know, a comment about, hey, yeah, you know, that was cool, and you did an awesome job at troubleshooting. Remember that for next time, and you'll solve your problem right away. So that's what I really loved about myBlueprint, and that we could get a snapshot of basically how we were doing. So if I scroll down here, as you can see, I have no data for any of the classes, but if I select grade 9 and for all time, I can actually get all of this information here on my students and the activities that these students did. So I can actually go in on each individual student and take a look at how they're progressing through all the different activities that we got them to do. So that, to me, as an educator, was amazing. I love using Classroom by Google. I use that with my grade 3 students, and it was a great classroom management tool. This I see a lot of benefit in, especially because of that portfolio piece. And that is really what Stacy and Kaylin and I stressed with students this year, was how important that portfolio piece was to, or is going to be later on at NSCC and beyond in getting jobs. So hopefully they'll see that that and continue on with it in grade 10 of this year. So questions about that? With in creating your own portfolio, if I actually go into student view, I can actually create my own portfolio within here if I add myself to the class. So I can create that, and I can complete class activities as well in here. So I have a portfolio button, and I can add to my own portfolio. This is right off my student view. If that answers your question, Kim.
All right, so I'll just share a couple of the pieces, and we'll leave some time for questions if you get any other questions, if anyone has them. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
All right, so in one of your portfolios there, see, I'm in one of these portfolios. All my items are there. To add stuff, students can add a journal. They can add stuff to them from myBlueprint. So those who am I pieces, careers they're interested in, post-secondary programs, resumes, cover letters, anything that they've done direct in there. A journal would be a piece of writing. Anything else that they can also add: pictures, video, audio, links, or an outside piece if they want, which they can also, when they reflect, you notice everything has a little reflection piece at the bottom. If they click on that, if you have resistant readers, they can add audio, video, a photo, or an additional outside file. But for those who struggle to read, it's not speech to text, it's just an audio file. So we're not going to get the garbled speech that sometimes comes to speech to text, but you can have an audio file for those real struggling writers. But they can also add media from their device. So if it's a picture, video, audio, or link directly from the device that they're on, this will scale to computers, tablets, Chromebooks, whatever. It scales, it's designed to scale to whatever device the students would have access to. They don't need to install specific apps or anything else. But the last piece is file. If they have something directly on their device, so if they were using their cell phone and they've recorded themselves doing something, or if they're on a Chromebook, their whole Google Drive will be available, or they can log into their Google Drive and upload items from there. So if they have an assignment for another course they want to add to there, they've uploaded a file to there. They have a past piece of work that demonstrates some of their skills. it links with all those things, and it's going to stay accessible to them as long as they log in once every 18 months in perpetuity. There's no cutoff at this point in time for students. As long as they're logged in within 18 months post-graduation, they'll have access to it. So the other piece is in your teacher account. At the bottom here, there is a support center. So that opens up to here. There's resources, webinars, and videos. It's the education planner you'd be using. And there is a whole of video clips about how to do a bunch of different things, how to use a student account, how to use the teacher account. There's pre-recorded webinars. There's information for the family account. Families are able to create their own account as well and link with the student as long as the student approves them. And that allows parents to be in the loop as to what students have in their portfolio. It also gives them access to the whole demo student account where they have a version where they get to play around and see. So they have access to that information. So when they're having conversations with the student about future plans, they're both talking from the same information. And again, the information in myBlueprint is all Nova Scotia first information, and then Canadian. It's a fully Canadian company, so we're not getting all sorts of American resources there. It's all Canadian. So those videos are good. If you have questions about how things work, you can scroll through and see stuff there. There are webinars you can sign up for. Education planner where there are random times, random days, but you can sign up and take advantage. So some of them are during the school year and they may work with when you have some free time. Some of them are in the afternoons or evenings. They try to scatter them to give some availability to lots of people. And as you can see, there's quite a few sessions there. And the last piece is resources, where there is some getting started guides. There's some remote learning, should that become necessary to be able to use those. Some resources for student-led conferencing. If you want to use this, that's another really good use for the portfolios, is the student-led conferencing. Some other information, but there's also lesson plans. So the Word or Google Doc, they're fully editable, so you can take pieces and chunks if you want. And we'll just open one right now to show you what it looks like. So it tells you what's required, give an idea about what the learning goals are, materials, any of the handouts they supply, instructions, and then they're all fully editable. So you can make a copy and edit it to exactly what you would need for there. So it's a really good use, some really good resources there if you're looking for a way to start with it. Depending on what you're teaching, there's a ton. Let's say scroll in there. There's a ton of them available. If you happen to be teaching the career development, there'll be some information that options and opportunities, lesson package, the 21st century competency stuff. Those are packages of certain ones of these lessons that really work well together for doing those. But said there's quite a few good lessons in there that you can take, adapt, use, and it may be the case of just being able to use them with a step if you're out sick sometime, or they may be really what you want to use with the students you have, because it's a great lesson, but they're pretty well done overall. And again, they're all editable, so you're not having to kind of cut and paste stuff, literally cut and paste them to make copies. So, but there's really good information in there. So we've got about 5 minutes left, but I will, one other piece I didn't show you. Any of these portfolios can be shared externally. So if it's another teacher, they can and have a student in the class, they don't have to share it. But if they are looking at applying for a scholarship down the road, or they're looking at applying for a job, or doing a co-op placement, or anything else where they need this shared, they can share, just link, copy it, pass it out, and change the settings so the reflections and comments aren't there. So if you've been giving them feedback, they've been reflecting on some of the stuff, and that's not really relevant to what they want to, what that person needs to see, they can turn that off. And they can also set a password, so only people with that password would ever be able to access it. And then they can email it out, email that link out there, and it's a live share link. So what that means is, if I copy this link, I don't need an account to see it. It'll show up like this. And I'll be able to kind of go in and scroll through and see things. So it will, if I click on anything, actually go into a slideshow mode where I can scroll through, or I can scan down there. But it allows me to not need an account to be able to get access to it. Students can also delete that link at any point in time, where if they deleted the link, that person wouldn't be able to access that any longer. So that's a really useful tool as well. Do we have any questions? Anything anyone want? Oh, Alan.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just going to share my screen again because I actually got it working. My account for myBlueprint was only set to grade 9, so that's why I couldn't share the grade 10s, because all of our students are in grade 10 now because of the switchover. So this is an example of one of our students. I just added them to the TAP 10 class, and everything that they've done in grade 9 is still there. So I get to see all of that stuff. So me as the grade 10 teacher, I still get to see all the stuff that they did in grade 9. So as an example, underneath products and skills, if I go in and view this, this is an example of what we did when we built our computers. So this is what we asked students to do: go in and label all the parts, do a little write-up about what you did. So today we installed Windows 10 and Chrome. Some of us tested the computers with 4 gigs of RAM instead of 2 because we were having an issue with RAM. We also tested Minecraft to see how it worked. So a lot of our students were interested in that game. We tossed together some networking stuff, and students actually tested that. So here's an example of the picture that they took of their computer, and where they labeled all of their parts, and then they labeled all of their parts individually, and repairing computers. So the first day we actually looked at the motherboards and removed them, the heat sinks. They put some new thermal paste on, and this was all done with our partners that we had in. So we actually had Scott Coleman come down. We had Nick Doucette there, and he is the IT person at the Mariner Center. So if you're familiar with Yarmouth at all, he was in. Myself was in. Jeff Rain, our ITC consultant for the board, he was in. And we also had our teachers, Kaylin and Stacy, and although they weren't proficient with computers, they quickly learned how to solve student problems as well, and we're going around and sort of helping them. So even though my account was set to grade 9, I had it set to grade 10 so that I could show you this, just that all of the stuff that they had done with their reflections and the TAP conference that we have here, and all the stuff that they've taken so far. So the who am I, my interests, all of that stuff is still there. So you as the grade 10 teacher, if the grade 9 teacher used myBlueprint at all, when you add those students, you get to see all the work that they've done. So it's awesome because the students also get to see how much they've grown. So if they ever need to redo a computer again, or are building their own computer at home, like a couple of our students wanted to do, they can go back and actually look at, okay, well, what did I do there? What was that? What was that part? And they can actually go back and look at their reflections and stuff for those portfolios.
Thanks, Alan. And yeah, these portfolios and all the elements are going to follow them throughout throughout their access to that program. So they'll be able to go back and draw files out that they want. Those who-am-Is, they may have done them previously, but as we know, students can they're going to grow and change as people over the course of their high school. So they're able to once they're already saved in a portfolio, they can go back and redo them and compare them. They have to save them to a portfolio before they can redo. I'll show you that piece quickly, but that's a good thing to do with your students if they've already done them. So they can add it to a portfolio by simply, did I share my screen? No. So probably share my screen so you can actually see that. And then I'm done. So they can add to portfolio there and then restart it, and they'll be able to redo it again. Also, if you have them doing it for the first time and they skim, they like 15, 16-year-olds do sometimes, go through as quickly as possible, look at the results and don't think it's reflective of them, they can restart it at any point in time. But if they want to compare where they were last year to where they are now and see if there's any changes, if they add it to a portfolio, they can go and redo it. And then their new version, they'll be able to compare it to their old one. If they don't add it to a portfolio, they'll lose it. Because that when added to portfolio, that's a snapshot of where it was at that point. That is our time for today. Thank you all very much.